One of the ideas that came up was the thought of having a show that was one long argument that went on from beginning to end, but that along the way, without stopping, kind of metamorphosed and kind of twisted and turned from one argument to another, to another, to another, but kept going like a snake all the way through the whole thing. And so that was the idea, to come up with a kind of almost dreamlike scenario with three characters, whereby lots and lots of different sorts of arguments and fights, physical fights, just kind of metamorphosed from one into another. So that's what we've ended up with, is like a very long string of sausages made up of arguments.
And actually, the part of the reason that the idea is so appealing is because it's so recognisable, whether you are somebody who happens to argue a lot, or whether you're somebody who has experienced other people arguing a lot, or even the quality of argument you hear in the street. It sparks off so many thoughts and so many memories, and our lives are so suffused with argument, and I really do mean argument, not constructive debate, but the sort of often childish, often absurd, often sort of circular arguments that we will all have been in some way party to.
What would you say to people who might think about coming to see the show, who hate arguing and kind of the thought of going along to watch, you know?
I think the show is not uncritical of arguing, I'd say that, that the show is probably on their side, because actually something about where the state people get themselves to and where people push themselves in arguments, the sort of the lines that people are actually willing to cross once they're embroiled in an argument, that is idiotic and very funny, very funny.
Is it heavy?
I would say the show is not at all heavy. In fact, it's very silly.
I think a real dreamlike quality is something that I really like about the show. Its ability to hop about around the universe, as it were.
I can see a fair amount of. I can see a little bit of Morecambe and Wise in there. I can see Tom, the musical director. He apparently described the whole sort of piece as a sort of cross between Waiting for Godot and the Three Stooges, and I think there probably is. But then what you find through beginning to work on the material is that there's just little fleeting moments where you get a very sharp, real sense of what's at stake sometimes in those arguments. And unless, however silly it's going, you're playing it absolutely truthfully, people really do behave that idiotically, then I think it becomes pointless. So what it is generally very silly and funny, with these occasional little poignant moments just sort of fly to the surface and then back down. I'd say that's the tone of the piece.
Yeah. There's quite a real argument happening on stage between two actors. One has just accused the other of being very worthy in the choices that he makes, when he's doing stuff. And this chap is about to burst with anger when one of the other characters wheels a door very quickly between them. And a sequence begins, a bit like a kind of vaudeville or musical sequence of kind of going through a door and arguing to and fro between a door and slamming the door. Don't you dare slam the door on me, and kind of round and round they go.
Well, some of the things I love are where you can see that there's the nugget of a real true story. So one of the stories that was told to Dan, in fact, was of somebody's wedding and of their husband being very clear that he did not want to dance in the first dance. He was not going to do it. Like many men, he just was almost phobic about dancing in public. It's really ghastly. And yet this DJ niggled and announced that he was going to dance, and it led to deep unrest, shall we say. So that's been a really nice nugget that Dan has taken and worked into the show.
So one of the sections of the show is actually a dream. So one of the characters falls asleep on stage, and then is approached by another one of the characters who explains that he is in a dream now. And he can't believe it. He says, "Oh, but no, I'm on stage. Look, there's the audience." But she explains, no, there's often audiences in dreams, and he wants proof. So she says, "Well, I do know, in fact, that you've been in love with me for the last 10 years, which he is, and he's never told anyone. And he's overjoyed in his dream that this has come out, and that she's actually interested in having a relationship with him. But then very quickly, it comes out somehow that he would love to have children with her, and she hates children. And there's something kind of awful and poignant about it, and funny that he ends up having an argument in a dream about whether or not they're going to have children or not. And that's one of my favourite bits in the show, I think, because it's absurd and poignant and funny in a really sort of delicious cocktail of ways, I think.
So I was often watching the action sort of with, almost covering my eyes because it's so chronically embarrassing and so delicious at the same time. There's something very appealing about that.